It's the big one. It's France, the big game of the tour as well. We held back a bit to see the teams. Some very interesting selections on both sides. With me, as always, Gavin Rich and Nick Mallett. Nick, let's start with you. Just your thoughts on the Springbok team. Certainly a lot of experience, but a couple of guys that Russie's thrown in the deep end in that cauldron at Stade de France, and he, like Bone Fenter, that he wants to see if they're
Yeah,
going to swim.
yeah. I think it's a necessity. Unfortunately, with Ox out, it's the balance of the front row. It looks to me like he's sort of holding back probably his best scrummaging front row for the second half. It's the Bulls front row with Wilco Low and at Lucid Stennekamp, the two props, and I think those they're probably more aggressive, they have a better ability to win penalties than Thomas du Toit, Tighthead, and Bowen at Lucid. Even though Bowen's done very well when he's been given the chance. I think that's probably the only area of semi doubt for the box. But equally, it's an area of doubt for the French because they've got two 25-year-olds who've had very few international cap, Montan, and I'm not sure the other guy's his name. But I looked and they've played, one or two games for France, probably on the tour down to New Zealand. So they're not really experienced players. So I don't think it's going to affect the box much. Moving on from that, I think some senior players. Etzebeth's got a big game. He needs a big game because Erge played really well last weekend. The loose trio is the one that we know and love. Sia 100 cap, Bilius Toy, and Visa. Visa is so valuable for us, especially in a game like this, which is going to require a lot of physicality. It looks like Reinach and Sasha have nailed down that 9-10 spot for the moment. You never know with Rassi and the experience at centre of Damien and Jesse has won the sort of the choices over someone like Canon Moody, who perhaps is still suffering from the game he played against Argentina. The back three, fantastic. Damien Willemse coming back, great security under the high board. He's got a lot of confidence, and Cheslin and Aaron. So listen, it's a very, very good team. Probably only would have been a starter. Otherwise, everyone else pretty understandable that they're starting in this big game.
Yeah, two things that sort of I suppose are a talking point. They're not major surprises because I don't think we get major surprises from Bok teams anymore. But the fact that there's no Andre Pollard on the bench, which was one thing we thought were going with Marnie Lebok, and the other one, Ethan Hooker, who's obviously done pretty well on the wing as well. Just that choice between him and Kurt de Arends, so it must have been quite a difficult one for Rassie.
Yeah, well, it's a funny one when you talk about the fly halves because the reason we say that we expected Andre Pollard to play. And by the way, what I love about the French team is if you look at the French team and you've got I mean, Nick's French is obviously a lot better than mine. Mine's non-existent, but just the way they talk about the bomb, well, their replacements. I think it's finishers or something, and that's
Yeah,
really what it's in English. If that sort of comes across as finishers, that's really
yeah.
what in modern rugby those guys are. Yeah. So is it finishes, Nick? Is it sort of
Yes,
like
it is.
translated
Yeah,
to?
they finished. Yeah,
Okay.
that's exactly. Yeah, it's a bit of a bastardized English terminology, but it's exactly as that. They're the finishers. They don't talk about bond squads. They talk about finishers. Yeah.
Okay. So I like when we talk about Andre Pollard as a finisher, we're talking about his clutch kicking. We're talking about that calmness he brings. And what you don't know if you're not with the box all the time is how much Mane Lebok's kicking might have improved. I mean, I can't remember him missing a kick this season. Well, I can't remember him missing many kicks this season. When I say this season, I don't know what a South African season is, but you know what I mean. In this
Yeah.
international season, I can't remember him missing any big kicks, and most of the kicks, he's been kicking them from touchline. So Mani does bring that sort of X factor that Andre doesn't. So if you're chasing the game late on, I mean, you might not necessarily be chasing 3 pointers. You might be coming on and actually needing to score tries, and that's where Marnie with his distribution skills is so good. I mean, if we go back many years, and it's not a name that Nick would like to be reminded of, Stephen Larkham was a because of his drop in the World Cup semi-final in 1999. But Stephen Larkham was just a great distributor, and that's really what Marnie is. I'm not saying that they're in the same league, but they're similar sort of players. When it comes to Ethan Hooker, I think it basically comes down to our I was going to say revolutionized thing. It's not a revolutionized thing. People have been talking about hybrid players for years, but Russie's the first guy to really bring in a proper hybrid player. We don't know whether Andre Esterhuizen. Well, the way the team's numbered, it looks like he's flank, and there's no other loose forward cover. Although that we know that Ruan Notkeer can play blindside flank as well if needed. But I think with Andre Esterhuizen there, it actually skews it for somebody like Ethan Hooker, because Ethan can obviously, there's quite a lot of utility value in our back three, that guys that can play different roles. So you almost like don't need a sort of Ethan of course can play outside centre, but at the moment it's almost like he's a specialist wing for the Boks. So it does make sense. I mean, if you're going to sort of go 6-2 with the sixth forward actually being a centre, then you can't really sort of you can't have a specialist wing. You can't have that extra back. So that's really why Ethan Hooker isn't playing.
What I was thinking is just that it must have been a difficult choice, because obviously he's done pretty well in his last couple of tests. He gives physicality, and the high ball is probably going to be a huge thing as well. But I mean, it's not like Kurt Lee's ever played a bad test for the Springboks either. Nick, on that French team, there's obviously no Dupont. They don't have their front rows, but they still got Miafu, who's there in the second row, who's not going to move back very quickly at 145 kgs. And still a very good team, and an interesting Luku on the bench, and Legarrette who was on the New Zealand tour, pretty good at scrum half. Some interesting choices. A great backline as well.
Yeah. The areas I think we need to be cognizant of are the back five in the forwards. Obviously, Marchand as well as a hooker. He's had a lot of experience, but Miafu and Flamand both play together at Toulouse, I think, and they are a fine pair of locks. Miafu, a big ball carrier, and not so much a jumper, but very good at lifting, and they do a lot of lifting of their loose forwards in the lineout, both on their defensive lineout and attacking lineout. So it's quite it's a big back row. They've got big ball carriers, I think, to counter ours. Interesting that Aldrit has been left out. Obviously, there's always seems to be something in the French camp. I mean, he said that there was an unhappy feeling about the camp, early on in the season, or something when he was playing for La Rochelle. He made a comment about being happier at La Rochelle than he was. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but it was something a little bit derogatory, and bang, out of the squad completely. So. Fabien Galtier, if you're not with him, you're against him. It's as simple as that. And the loose forwards, Jelanche and Bouderon is very big ball, very powerful ball carrier. And the number 8 Guillard is also did really well on that tour. So I think that back five can match ours. Going to the scrum-up situation, I think it's mainly through injury. I think Luku's only had one game since he's had a hand injury, and Garrick has played really well so far this season. So I think they're putting the sort of form player to start and the experienced player to come off the bench. Obviously, Intermac, lots and lots of experience. They haven't played together, Garrick and not Intermac, but they are great ball players. And then Gail Fiku, the captain, with Barrel, I can't remember his name, the centre, but he's a very good defensive centre, big, strong ball carrier defensive centre. Two brilliant wingers and a goal-kicking a fullback who can also come in as a fly-off of second phase, third phase play. A great kicking game, Ramos as well. So Pinot, Billet, Barry, the other winger are sensational. So this is a heavyweight boxing fight of note. I mean, I cannot wait for this game. If in my opinion, the Boks have to be at their absolute best. We have to be as in the second half against the All Blacks at Wellington, the way we played against Argentina in Durban, that type of game. We can't be off our game. Like even Cape Town wasn't good enough, and Ellis Park certainly wasn't good enough, and nor was Eden Park. So those 3 games, if we're a little bit slow out of the blocks, if we're a little bit off our game, if we start chucking the ball around with a lack of accuracy, you will pay for it. This team they've got good enough players to really make it count against us. They're easily as good as New Zealand. And they are massively, massively motivated for this game.
Yeah, I was going to go. Let's go into that because obviously there's been a lot of talk about that this week. Paul Willemse last week said it felt like the French say it's a stab in the heart. We've had Luku say that it was their World Cup, which is a rather interesting way of putting it, seeing as South Africans probably feel that that World Cup was stolen from us as well.
Exactly.
So, there's a lot of emotion surrounding this one, and that can be good and that can be bad. Sia's 100th is also can be a good or a bad thing for a team, as we all know. But certainly the stakes are high. So, Gav, maybe just talk. You guys can go into that. Nick, you can come in as well. And also about Sia's 100th, just how big that a thing is for us. It almost feels like the week has been a lot more subdued than most Springbok weeks this year. It's been like everybody's holding back. I don't know if you guys feel the same as well. But it certainly feels like it's a rather low-key lead up to such a big game for everybody.
Yeah, well, there were quite a lot of questions there, sort of rolled all into one. So I'll go back to your beginning, which was the French. And I'll have to admit that I'm a little bit old-fashioned. I sort of like a bit caught up in the past. So there might have been a lot that has changed in French rugby in the last couple of decades. But I still sort of think back to the 1980s when you had that sort of French temperament that could sometimes let them down. So all this talk about revenge, I don't know the French psyche as well as Nick does, so that's why it's really good that we've got Nick to talk to us about this. But to me, it could actually be something that works against France when you almost too motivated. I mean, it sounds, they almost give the impression that they've been lying in bed for the last 2 years, just thinking about the Springboks and wanting to bang their heads against the wall. So it's, I just think that the first 20 minutes is going to be crucial in this game, and I'll tell you why. One of them is that, hopefully, and in this day and age, it's almost like a false hope. Hopefully, there's not going to be a red card early on to either side. We know what happened last time when the two teams met in Marseille. It happened to Pieter-Steph du Toit really early. And then the other thing is that I keep having this vision for some reason. And, it would be lovely for South Africa if it plays out. But I remember watching the Sharks play Ulster a few weeks ago, and I remember being completely shocked in the first 20 minutes because I suddenly realized I was watching a team that had played together for the last 2 months through the preseason, playing against a team that hadn't actually played together since last year, June. And the one thing that France don't have in this game is that recent knowledge. I mean, in the past, they might have toured in July, but this year they toured in July with their second string team. I know there are a couple of guys here who were on that tour, but they're not that many. So to me, the first 20 minutes, I've just got this funny feeling that we're going to see the Springboks actually for once being more clinical at the start and actually possibly hurting France early on and quietening down that crowd. I mean, that would be great for South Africa if it happens. So when I look at the French, I can't get out of my mind that last week I felt that one of the reasons New Zealand won so comfortably in the end against Ireland was that they were more battle hardened, and certainly in the second half, I think that showed. And there is that hangs over this game for me. It's just I've just got that funny feeling that South Africa, having played together more recently, being battle hardened, Russie's gone for his most dependable players in a sense. I mean, I was a bit surprised that Kane and Moody isn't playing because I love that guy's X factor, but Jesse Creel is the more dependable of the guys. I know we spoke earlier in the week and we said that Chesnan would do okay at fullback, but I'm still much happier to have Damian Willemse there because of his bulk and because of his kicking game, all those things, and his way of controlling the game actually quite late on. I think it was in New Zealand that he did that in that game in Wellington. And I can't remember what your other. I'll let Nick answer the things about.
We can come back to that. We can come back to that. Dora. Let's talk about the psyche, the French psyche, rather.
I both of those are very good points, and I think the one big thing about that Fabien Galthié has to manage this week is emotion. His side are incredibly emotionally damaged by that quarterfinal loss, and you have to understand that Anglo-Saxons take it on the chin, and we say, okay, that's that's we it hurts, but we can't wait for the next opportunity to get off the mat. Whereas the Latin temperament, they tend to go over it and go over it and go over it and get reminded about it by their people. So many people would be saying, hell, what a pity. It was really our World Cup to win that one. And so this has been going for a while now. And that this team will be desperate to remedy that. And it all depends on how they challenge this emotion, whether they can do it in a disciplined fashion, bringing physicality, but not bringing violence or incidents that might warrant a yellow or a red card. I mean, that's what I think Fabian will have to work really hard on this week with this team, because there will be no lack of motivation for them to beat us today. And the words they use, they stole the World Cup from us. Luku said that. And Brendan, you're so right. They don't go back and say, it's far more relevant to say that the French Federation stole the whole Rugby World Cup from South Africa, with some, illegal and underhand stuff where they managed to encourage small unions to vote for them when World Rugby had told all the bodies that South Africa was the best bid and they should bid for it. So, there's a little bit of double standards there. Just on the Springbok side and being better battle hardened, that is what is going to balance out, I think, the emotion that's going to come in that first 20 minutes. If we are really clever about the way we play those first 20, we've got to suck that out of them. And the way you can do that a lot of time is by putting the ball behind their team, putting it behind them all the time, making them catch contestables, putting chips over the back line if you have to, making Ramos pick balls off the ground. It's slippery at 9 o'clock at night in Paris. Really being intelligent about your kicking game. Even if you move it and you get into second center or it gets into Damien's hands, to put the grubber through at the back. So you force the blindside wing into that sort of coffin corner area where he hasn't got anything to do. You can't counterattack from there. All your team, all your players are in front of the ball. The best you can do is to get a poor touchline kick, and give a line out away. So if we can control the game in those first 20 minutes and just take that whole emotion out of the crowd and also out of the team, then I agree with you. Then I think that the fact that we have played together is going to be a big advantage for us. But if, like in the game in the quarterfinal, they score in the first 2 minutes and very nearly score in the next 5 minutes, and suddenly it's 14-0, like it was at Eden Park, against the All Blacks, it's hard to fight back against a very good team. So that's why there's so many little battles within battles in this game that I'm fascinated with. But I know that Rassie will have told his team there is a way in which you can, well, first of all, by scoring yourself. I mean, that keeps them very quiet. So, but there's a way in which you can do that. And in South Africa, we should revert for the first 20 minutes to our tactical kicking game as much as possible. If we can do that, then they're going to have to play from a long way away from our try line, and I think we will get penalties and driving more opportunities, and our forwards can maybe get stuck into them with ball in hand.
One thing that made that quarterfinal such a special game was the fact, as you mentioned, Nick, they scored early. They had all the emotion. They had the crowd behind them. But the Boks literally went toe to toe with them, and they scored. I mean, they had Curtly's one and Cheslin's one pretty much, so they didn't get away from the Boks there. I think part of that, and there was a lot of criticism afterwards of Ben O'Keefe. Gavin, nobody's spoken about the ref this week. It's a very experienced ref. It's Angus Gardner. But it's also a ref that hasn't been kind at times to the Boxer. I mean, Angus Gardner was the one with, remember, Andre Esterhuizen and Owen Farrell back at Twickenham. There's a bunch of those. And with the crowd that's going to be behind them, it's going to be important for the Boks to be obviously extremely disciplined, because that crowd will just whistle and carry on about every little thing. And I'm not sure Angus Gardner's as calm under the pressure as Ben O'Keefe was.
Well, the thing, I don't like Angus Gardner full stop as a referee at any of the back in Super Rugby days, neither. But if we were speaking to a French journalist now and asking them what they think of Ben O'Keefe, you might find, because I haven't actually studied it, so I don't, what's his record with France? I mean, he might not be they might not see him as a good referee either. So that's why I'm always very sort of reluctant to talk about referees, because he refs both sides, and he might make mistakes both sides. So yeah, just on Stade de France though, and on the crowd and and all those aspects. Yes, it's an away game, but okay, where did the Boks play? Did the Boks play the game against Ireland last year at Stade de France, or
Yeah,
was it a
it was
Marseille? Was
Stade
it
de
okay?
France.
So they have lost there recently, because I've been racking my brains now to try and remember when last South Africa actually lost at Stade de France, and certainly to the French, it's been quite a while now since we've lost there. In fact, our record against them since 2010 is actually quite astounding. They've only lost once, and that was actually in that game in Marseille a couple of years ago, where there was the extra story of the Peter Steph red card. I know DuPont got one later in the game, but I think that set the tone for the game early on. So it is a stadium that South Africa know very well now. They won. I mean, a lot of the players in this team won 3 playoff games there by 1 point a couple of years ago. So I think just the very fact that we're playing in Paris and not in Marseille, because I've been to both venues, and if you want to talk about hostility and you want to talk about that buzz, I mean, Marseille is even worse to me than France. Than Paris. Paris can actually get a little bit flat. Some of the times I've been there, it can be flat, particularly if your team starts well against the home team. They can almost turn on their own as well. In fact, I want to speak to Nick later on about France turning on their own, which was back in
I was going to come to that next.
in 1997. But yeah, I think it's actually a good thing that this game's being played in Paris and not in Marseille.
I was going to say, I was going to come through to Nick anyway about that, because I know Gavin's been wanting to reminisce. He loves reminiscing the nostalgia stuff. And that's certainly one of the better days of Springbok rugby back there in 1997, Nick. And I'm sure you've got some memories. Maybe take us through that, and just, yeah, how that whole day unfolded, and how you guys, when you knew you were on top of the French team that day. Because certainly there's been very few performances from a Springbok team in Paris
Just
ever that can match that one.
Just to contextualize it quickly, though, just before Nick talks, we're talking about 1997. We're talking about the third game on tour, because you'd played Italy and Bologna. And actually, the week before that, you only won 36-32 against France and Lyon. But in that game, I think at one stage you were probably 20 points up. So what actually happened the week later, you could almost see it coming then. So we're talking 1997. Nick's taken over from Coral du Plessis like three matches before that, really. You're on tour, and South Africa are playing France at Parc des Princes. It's the last game they're ever playing at the old headquarters. There's a lot of emotion on the French side, and Nick can tell us what happened next.
And Rassie was playing for the Springboks, and Fabian for the French.
Yes, he was.
Yes,
exactly. Yeah. Fabian, I'd coached him at False Bay. He'd come over in 1995 to South Africa, and I was the coach of False Bay. And because I spoke French, he came and joined our club, and he played brilliantly for us. Played a couple of games for Western Province, actually, and then was called up into the French team. So I knew Fabian well, and on that tour, after the test in Lyon, I had supper with him afterwards, and he said, "We can't beat these teams. These are extraterrestrials." He called our Springboks. I just think we had some incredibly physical and powerful players. Andre Venter, Osterrand was playing at the best of his rugby. Garvey was running beautifully. Dalton. We had Kroner Otto, Taish. Rusty had just started his career and was very skillful. Henry Honeyballer's fly-off was devastating, and Dick Muir was playing some great rugby as well. So we psychologically were, even though we only won 36-32. We were leading 36-15 with about 10 minutes to go. And the guys, funny enough, they went into their shell and they started kicking it. Our players started kicking it, and they counterattacked against us and scored a couple of tries. So during the week, the emphasis was on holding on to the ball and not giving them opportunities with ball in hand, and playing our game, making sure we ran at them and made them tackle, because I knew they weren't up for it. And it was quite extraordinary. I think we scored after the first 38 seconds or something like that. We kicked off and Fabian mistouched, passed inside to Andre Fenter. He ran 40 meters down the middle of the field, and it looked like every Frenchman was waving him towards their try line. There was no one standing up to tackle. A ruck under their poles, a pass out, and James Small scored on the wing. And that set up the game. We were 28-0 up at halftime. And my only worry was that we were going to do what we did from the week before, go into our shells. And the crowd was booing their players. And I saw 2 French players coming off in tears, actually, at halftime. So that's where the emotion gets on the wrong side of the French team. They really didn't believe they could beat us. And we carried on playing in that nature and in the way we did in the first half. And I think it was, as 52-10, I think it was the score. But an extraordinary performance by the Springboks, aided and abetted by a completely demoralized French side. We had to get into their faces and get those tries early on. But once we did, they fell away. They just didn't. They didn't have the sort of character to fight their way back into the team. And at the end of the game, I mean, the crowd, the French officials said, "Please, the Springboks must do a tour of honor." We've never seen the French side being, smashed like this at the Parc de France. And it was the most ironic thing in the world was seeing Gary Teichmann take his team and run around the Parc de France and getting a standing ovation from the crowd. It was exceptional. So that was a huge highlight of my coaching career. But let's get back to this one, because this is such there's never going to be a blowout like that. I think the last 4 games, the biggest winning margin has been 4 points. I think it's been 4, a couple, and 1 and 1. So it's going to be, I think, within a score either way. And going back to Angus Gardner, I think you get personalities, refereeing personalities, and I think Ben O'Keefe is not calm. How would I say it? He sticks to what he believes in, and he'll blow what he sees. So it didn't matter how much booing he got in that quarterfinal, and he got a lot. I mean, for 5 minutes they didn't stop booing after Etzebeth's pull back with his hand, where everyone thought it was a knock on, and he just kept on blowing what he saw, kept on blowing. He might have made 1 or 2 mistakes our way, he might have made 1 or 2 mistakes France's way, but he wasn't influenced at all by the atmosphere in the stadium and the crowd booing him. This is something I think Angus Gardner is going to have to face this weekend. So he's someone who talks a lot more on the field. He coaches players off the ball, and he says, move away, no, leave it. He wants to see movement, and in that way, it can become a little bit messier, a little bit less clear, and when it's less clear and messier, you get these decisions that go against you, or players getting frustrated, and also I don't think he likes being unpopular. So if you're getting a massive boo every time he penalizes the French side, and a huge cheer when he penalizes South Africa, I mean, human nature is such that you'd rather get a cheer than a boo, So I think 50-50 calls might go the way of France in this game, as opposed to in the quarterfinal, when I think Ben O'Keefe just refed what he saw.
We're going to start winding it down. Just maybe come back to Sia at the 100th game. Both of you guys, we've had some amazing captains who've led to World Cup wins in the past. But I think probably once Sia retires, we'll probably only realize how special he is, because the one aspect about him to me is not so much his captaincy, it's just how understated he is a lot of the time. He does all the work, he does the stuff off the ball, but he's also the guy who stops for every photo, does every selfie, he's really big on sort of fan interaction and stuff, and he's always, from his whole career, he's never changed. I don't know if you guys feel the same, or have the same sort of impression, but for me, the one thing about him, you've never seen a bad moment from Sia. He's always been the same personality-wise the whole time, and certainly has obviously extended the Springboks, I suppose, popularity around more than just what it has been in the past, into areas that it's never been. So maybe just a word from you both to you about Sia's 100th, seeing as it's such a special occasion for him.
Yeah,
well, do you want me to start? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, firstly, I was at Kings Park a couple of weeks ago watching the Sharks play against the Scarlets, And it's quite a weird day for somebody I know, because I know the Plumtrees, and John Plumtree's wife Laura was at the game, obviously wanting her husband to win because he was under a lot of pressure. But she also had her son Tane playing for Scarlets, so she was in a difficult position where she wanted Tane to do well, and he also wanted her husband's team to win well. And you may remember, if you watched that game, there was a scuffle between Tane Plumtree and Sia. And I remember, like, we were chatting about it afterwards, and like everybody was quite confounded that somebody had actually challenged Sia. Like, you don't often see that happen. It's like almost like there's that sort of respect for him on the field from both your own team and obviously the team he's playing against. And that to me was like, I was quite fascinated, because then I did start thinking about it. Like, when have we ever seen Sia sort of really sort of taken on by a player in that sort of way, off the ball fashion? Sia's just got such huge like standing in the game. Obviously, you win 2 World Cups as captain, you're going to have that. And I almost do get that feeling that like the world of rugby does sort of. I know in 2021 we wondered, and Rusty came out with that video about how the ref was talking to Sia. You don't see that anymore. I mean, you don't see that anymore. Now there's complete respect for Sia, and that's what I would say about Sia. And look, I mean, when I first came across Sia, I mean, he was a youngster coming into the Western Province age group team. So obviously he has changed a lot since then, but that basic person hasn't, and that's really one of his strengths. And yeah, and it's just great to see such a great guy actually celebrating, such a landmark achievement tomorrow.
Yeah. Back that up with what you need from a team sport captain like rugby, probably more than any other sport, in fact, is someone who is humble, and Sia's humble, and also unselfish. He's got to be someone who thinks about his teammates long before he thinks about himself. And I have that feeling about Sia, that he's always wanting his team to be in a good place. He's wanting to understand what the coach wants. He wants to put that across to the team. He wants to reflect what the coach wants in the way he behaves towards the fans of this country. He's very, very open to advice from outside. So when I say advice, within the group, if you think of him in the beginning, Vermeulen, Pollard, he would always, Etzebeth, he would always turn to those guys. What do you think? What do you think? If they were under the pump, under pressure. He wasn't an autocratic captain ever. He was very much a sort of cohesive captain who lent on other leaders in the team to support him. And then obviously his off the field role in South Africa has been unmatched. I don't think any other captain has won so much support, not only, funny enough, in South Africa, but internationally. His friendship with Severe, for example, and who's so highly respected in New Zealand. I mean, when they see one of their guys who they respect so much have so much respect for someone like Sia, it passes on, it rubs off on the Springboks. And similarly, I think in every other country we play against. So referees, as you say now, Gavin, don't ever speak down to someone like Sia. They realize that he's not a person who's in their ear all the time, and if he's coming, it's for something that's important. But just a wonderful guy as well. Really he's just done so much for rugby in South Africa. 2 World Cups on the back of a great coaching from Rusty, obviously. There has to be that combination. There has to be a coach who gets it right, and there has to be a captain who is in sync with his coach and in sync with what the coach wants for his team, because he passes that message through to the team and gets them to believe in what the coach and the coaching staff says. So going through South Africa, obviously you had Francois Pienaar and his association with Kitch Christie, which was incredibly powerful. Then Gary Teichmann, without any doubt, in my first 2 years, I mean, absolutely adored and respected by his teammates. And then John Smith would have done outstandingly well as well with his World Cup win. And we all know that he kept Bismarck out, even though possibly Bismarck was playing better because of his leadership skills. And now we've got Sia. So we've had some outstanding leaders in this country, but Sia's right up there with Richie McCaw. With I think we all regard him in the same way as New Zealand regarding Richie McCaw in their rugby sort of culture. We'll be looking back on this 6-year period and saying the same about Siya Kolisi and Rassi.
Yeah, we got about 4 minutes left. Just want to turn to the other internationals quickly. Maybe a word on them. England are probably going to tout themselves as the best in the world after they smash in Italy this weekend, and Scotland are talking themselves up big time against the All Blacks. I'm not sure if they're that good to beat the All Blacks. I just want to know what you guys think of those internationals. Sorry, it's Australia playing Italy. Sorry, England are playing
Yeah.
Fiji. Sorry, my mistake. So, but same
Well,
thing applies.
Okay, so I expect I expect New Zealand to win against Scotland. It's been 120 years. In fact, the Scotland have never beaten them in 120 years. But if you look back at, and now I'm almost talking as a betting man now, because what I'm saying is I expect the All Blacks to win. But if you actually are wanting to bet on rugby, that game, because it's apparently like the odds are very much against Scotland. The Scottish win isn't completely beyond the realms of possibility, because I've got a very good memory of the last three games. I think it was 8 points, 5 points, and 8 points. And the last time the two teams played was in 2022, and it was Rory Dodge, or was it Jack Dempsey? I think Jack Dempsey got yellow carded right at the end. But Scotland were leading the game, and they were and in the game before that, 2017, Stuart Hogg lost the ball over the try line, what would have been the winning try. So and remember that the All Blacks have just flown in from the United States, which, I mean, people say it's only a 7-hour flight, but apparently it is quite debilitating in terms of the time zones. So I just got a funny feeling that Scotland might have a chance on Saturday. I wouldn't bet my house on them winning, but if you were sort of wanting to sort of take a sort of underdog, a dark horse to win this weekend, then Scotland certainly is it.
Yeah. I think England, we chatted about the England performance before the game against Australia, and I think we both said they were going to surprise on the upside. I thought, Gav, you said that Australia, we perhaps put them on a pedestal that they didn't deserve. It was more because of our errors that they beat us, as opposed to them, creating the opportunities. So I think England are on the up and up, and I think they are. Funny enough, aren't they one ahead of France at the moment? They might have sneaked up the fourth. They're going, I think, for this autumn to be unbeaten, and I think that'll be the biggest challenge for New Zealand, to play England. A little crowd behind them, quite a few players in each position jostling for the starting post. A good bench coming off, a decent game plan, 3 fly-offs. They've got something going for them now. Belief in the coach Borthwick as well. It's Ireland. Ireland needs to pick themselves up. They need to, they really need to get themselves ready for. Is it Australia? I think there's their big next challenge. I'm not sure when.
And then us. Yeah,
and then us. Yeah. So it's. I think England is the up and up team, and obviously I always think that France is right up there. So our game is the big one this weekend, without any doubt. And I'm with you on Scotland, New Zealand. I think it could be closer than people expect.
Well, that's it for this week. We'll be back on after the game on Sunday, so have a lot to talk about. So,
what's that?
Springboks by 8.
Springboks by 8. You're gonna go.
Yeah, quick prediction there.
Springboks by 8.
Springboks by 8. Yeah, I'll go by less than that. I'll keep it under 4. I think it's going to be a nail biter, guys. I really do. I'm just really hoping it's not decided by a referee decision, by a controversial referee decision.
Yeah, let's hope that as well. I'm going to agree with both of you. I'll probably go more or less by the next score as well. But that's it for this week. We'll be back on Sunday. Thanks, guys, for watching. And if you haven't already, click that subscribe button. Chat to you guys on Sunday. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.